Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest is a regular to the show. It's time for our yearly visit about fire prevention, fire safety. Robert Duvall, he is the New England Regional Director, Senior Fire Investigator, and he is back. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me back.
How have you been?
Oh, very well, thank you.
Fire or two here or there?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're getting fewer and fewer, but unfortunately for some, there are still quite a few out there.
Well, as we tape the show, is this the right time to have you in as we get ready to go? We're in fall, getting ready to go into the winter season. This is the time where maybe people start firing off their wood stoves or even turning on the heat, right?
Yep. Statistically, the cold weather months are the months where you see the most fires. Naturally, in the residential area, because of heating, cooking, people are indoors more often than they are out vacationing or enjoying the outdoors. So yes, from say November in New England until March, those are the higher instances of fire.
So this is what you would refer to as fire season?
It could be, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. For New England, it would be.
Not that a fire can't occur in the summer. It's just that
Correct.
thing.
It's just more fires in the colder weather months.
So you mentioned you used the word statistics a minute ago. Why don't we get back right into it and kind of I don't want to use shock value, but who's at risk?
In home fires, which we can focus on, it's the elderly and the young. And that's basically because in many cases they can't help themselves getting out of the house. An able-bodied 18-year-old person, wide awake, sitting on the couch, smoke alarm goes off, there's a fire, they get up, they head out the door. That same situation in the middle of the night, they hear a smoke alarm, they sit up, they're able to help themselves out the door. Someone that has a handicapped or an elderly and doesn't quite move at the speed they did when they were 18 years old, or an infant in a crib, or say a 3 or 4-year-old that may just run to try to find mom and dad and run towards the danger as opposed to running away. So those are the folks that are most at risk at both ends of the spectrum, the elderly and the very young.
What mistakes do people make? What are the common mistakes, since we're focusing for the moment in the household? What are some mistakes?
Well, the number one cause of residential fires is smoking and cooking. Those are your number two, your 1 and 2. Smoking is either the falling asleep or improper disposal of smoking materials. Cooking is most often unattended. You start something on the stove, you get distracted. You get on the phone, you sit in your comfy chair and you take a nap.
They're driving down the field toward a touchdown.
Yes, and you forget that there's a pot on the stove. And it's just unattended consequences. That cigarette should have been put out and cold in the ashtray before or let it roll off the couch into the cushion. The pot on the stove. Another one would be unattended candles. People like to have candles. It makes the house smell nice. It looks nice. Ambiance to have candles lit and everything. But then they leave the room, or they leave a window open and the curtains just blow over the top of the candle before you know it, the curtains are on fire. So those are your main mistakes, just not paying attention to the heat source and leaving the room, or in some cases, leaving the house or going to bed at night, shutting everything off and leaving a candle burning, or misplacing a cigarette, or forgetting to turn the stove completely off.
It's one thing to know what to do when that happens, but obviously the real goal would be preventative. No, don't walk away from the stove. Don't put your cigarette out before you call it a night. Candles. I mean, everybody knows candles are dangerous. You love to have them. It does make the house smell nice, but how safe are they?
Yeah, it's education in a lot of cases, and the fire departments and the fire safety folks go into the schools and talk to the kids about fire safety. In a lot of cases, the words do not get to the adults. And so the kids are all pestering mom and dad to check the smoke alarms and have an escape plan from the house.
So they are getting educated, the kids at school.
Correct. They are getting the education, and they remember for a period of time until the next big thing at school. But mom and dad and big brother and big sister are the ones that have other things going in their daily lives, and they often forget. But it is education. People do not have a healthy respect for the speed at which fire will spread. And they think, well, if I have a small fire on the stove, I'll put the lid on the pot, or I'll hit it with a fire extinguisher, or I'll just take it and put it in the sink and run some water. Everything will be fine. They don't have the idea that fire will spread so rapidly that if you turn your back for less than 30 seconds, it could envelop that portion of the room and cutting off your exit, or making the conditions in there to the point where you can't breathe anymore. and you're on the floor gasping for breath trying to find your way out.
And we are in New England, so there's a lot of old houses. Maybe there's a lot of old insulation, or I don't know, asbestos. I mean, who knows what it is, but probably not the most up to date as far as code is concerned.
Right, and with the older construction, you run into a couple of things. In a lot of residential buildings in New England, you have what's called balloon frame construction. In other words, the fire can spread from a lower floor to the upper floors without showing itself anywhere in the living space.
Wow.
It goes up through a partition, and it spreads rapidly, and it's a problem for the fire department. They arrive, and there's a fire in the basement, and before you know it, there's fire showing out of the attic. So they're chasing all the time, and that's in the older buildings. But with these older buildings, you also have older wiring and older appliances, and if it hasn't been updated, or if you haven't had a licensed person come in and say, we should fix this before you put the new washer dryer in, or you just start to install all kinds of electronic equipment, maybe we should increase your wiring, or maybe we should fix the service.
Again, preventative.
Preventative, exactly. Yeah. We live in a society where everything plugs in. Whether it's your cell phone or your TV or your washer, dryer, stove, we need electricity. And in the older homes, some of that circuitry may not be up to the task. And it's always good to have someone, a licensed electrician, come in and say, this service is not going to meet what you want. You should get something newer, or we should replace this because it's old and worn out.
A lot of the newer things now have like safety features built into them, like a new heater that you'd buy even at a big box store. It'll cut off at it
Yes.
once it gets to a certain little things like that.
Right, your toaster has
Right.
things like that. Overheating protection. Coffee makers, the original Mr. Coffee type makers, very simple. Put water in, the element heats, everything comes out. It had one or two little safety features in it that would shut it off when it overheated. Now with the more fancier machines, there's all kinds of circuits in there, and it only runs for a certain period of time, then it shuts off if it's unattended, and so on. So there is some of that built in, and that all comes from experience, from either having their product fail down the road somewhere and saying, we're going to have to fix this, or just saying, this could go wrong. Let's improve this so the consumer doesn't have a problem with our product, because we want to sell more of these.
I think we've learned over the course of time with more electronics. You have the power strips with the surge protectors, and electrical fires are some of the toughies, right?
Right, and the power strips are great because they have some of that built-in circuitry, the surge protection and the shutoffs, but in many cases it invites people to plug everything in to one place, and especially around the holidays, which are right around the corner, we bring out even more electrical items. In addition to what's in our homes the other 11 months out of the year, we take out all the decorations, and they all plug in somewhere.
Yeah.
And so the plug strips come out, and often they're old, and so is the wiring that goes with them. And we say, we're going to get this for 3 or 4 more weeks, everything will be fine. They package it up and put it away, and next year it's a year older, and et cetera. So while the plug strips are safe to use, you have to make sure that they're new, and the wiring is intact, and all the circuitry is intact. And they're inexpensive enough where if you have any doubt, go out and buy another one. You can go to the department store, you can go to the electronics store, and pick up another one, relatively inexpensive for some peace of mind.
Newer, I guarantee you, it'll be able to hold more. So
Yeah.
if you're trying to jam, if you're trying to fill every slot on
Yes.
it, trust me, get a newer one.
I've
right?
seen them where they have gang plugs in the plug. So if it's a 6 outlet thing, there'll be 8 because they want to we'll get all those little things in on the end, and it makes the problem worse.
You like the idea of when the clocks change twice a year, that's your cue to change the battery in the smoke detectors. Is that a good way to do it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever reminds you to do it. My home, I always do it on Fire Prevention Week. My wife knows I'm going to ask her to go out and pick up some 9-volt batteries during Fire Prevention Week. You do it when you change the clocks. You can do it on a birthday. You can do it on an anniversary. Whatever reminds you to do that. The newer smoke alarms now put a little kink in that because the newer ones being manufactured have a 10-year battery in them.
Ooh.
So you install them and you forget them.
Did they do that on purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
It's basically to prevent taking the battery out, because one of the leading causes of smoke alarm failure in a home is that, I had a false alarm. It kept going off every time I used the toaster or every time I took a shower. So I took the battery out to prevent that. And then they forget to put the battery back in, and they need it, and the smoke alarm's not there for them. So the manufacturers and the code world said, what if we put a battery that will last 10 years? Because the units are supposed to only last 10 years before you replace them anyway. They get tired just like any other appliance. So let's put a 10-year battery in them, and that way you never have to worry about changing batteries again. So in a home, and especially in a rental property where you may not have been there when they put the detectors in,
How do you know?
It's probably a good idea. Check with your landlord and say, do I need to do anything with these smoke alarms? Should I change the batteries in October, say? And if he or she says, nope, they're 10-year batteries, I put them in, they're brand new, the electrician went through, you're all set. You don't have to worry about it. But double check. When in doubt, take them down. If there's not a battery door in the back, that's a pretty good indication that there's a 10-year battery.
Are there any that are on electricity, or are they always on battery?
Sometimes they're both. Newer homes, the code requires that they're powered by household current with a battery backup. So on the 364 days a year you have power in your home, everything's fine. And then if you lose power, whether it's somebody hits a pole in the street or a storm, the battery picks up where the household current goes. So in a newer home, they have both. In an older installation, you may have battery only.
I would have thought that the most prevalent reason to maybe have the 10-year battery is the most annoying thing about a smoke detector is when the battery is beginning to die and it beeps incessantly.
Yes,
you know?
and a lot of people, that is another reason why they take the battery out. And they go searching for a battery in the home. They go through all the kitchen drawers. They don't have any 9-volt batteries, so they say, I'll put it on my shopping list, and it never gets done.
So we talked about, a lot of preventative stuff, what to do, candles, don't use them, etc. But let's say you're in a situation where there is a fire. Another, I would say probably the biggest preventative thing you can do is to have some kind of escape plan.
Yes. And again, going back to teaching the kids in school.
They know.
They know because the fire department and the fire marshal folks will stress, have a plan. Know where you're going to go, how you're going to get out of your house, and especially if your main means of exit is blocked. It's human nature to come and go through the same exit. You go into a store, you go into a restaurant, you always go in and out the same door. But if you were told that that front door is not available, where are you going to go now? The average person would be scrambling to try to find another exit. So the plan should include your main means of exit, whether it's out through the front door or out through a side door into a garage or what have you, and a backup plan. If you're on the first floor, you may have to use a window. If you're on the second floor, you may have to go to the window and wait for the fire department to get to you, or if you have an escape ladder or a means to get out of that window down to the ground safely, you may have to do that. But it's good to have a plan. It's as simple as drawing a quick sketch of your home and where everyone's going to go, and then have a meeting place, a tree in the front yard, the garage, the mailbox. So when the fire department arrives, you can say, everyone's out of the house. I did a head count, mom and dad, brother and sister, the dog, everyone's here. And the fire department, that takes that load off of them, having to worry about there's an occupant still in the building, and they go into the rescue mode looking for that person.
May seem a little corny, but is it a good idea to maybe do a practice, like you did in school,
Yep,
right?
Absolutely. I know some families that will do that where they'll blow a whistle instead of the smoke alarm. Dad will go upstairs and say, we're going to practice sometime today, but I'm not going to tell you when. And he blows a whistle, and then everyone gets up and finds their way out. So practice while it may sound like you're overdoing it, you're not, because it's muscle memory, and the kids and the residents of the home will say, this is what I did when we practiced it. And do it once or twice a year, and make a game out of it for the little ones, and and time it if you want, just to get them interested in it, rather than, oh boy, here we go.
And who cares what your neighbors think?
That's it.
You'll be the one.
You may influence the neighbors.
That's
if
right.
they ask you, what are you doing on the front lawn? I said, we're practicing our home escape plan. Have you done that this week? And
Yeah. That's
perhaps they'll go and try it.
We'll take a break and come back. You want to give out the website for people to go and learn more?
Yes, www.nfpa.org. There's fire prevention information there. There's statistical data and just fire safety data in general.
Robert Duvall, New England Regional Director, Senior Fire Investigator. The talk is fire safety, fire prevention today. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. Our friend Robert Duvall, the New England Regional Director and Senior Fire Investigator, is here with us because it is fire season now. Better to be safe than sorry. We talked a lot about preventative stuff. We did a little segment on fire smoke detectors. So with that, what about places that have fire extinguishers? It's another one of those situations like the detector that kind of can just sit there forever and not be touched.
Yep.
Talk about that.
Well, fire extinguishers are good if you're trained to use them.
Yes.
And that's the biggest issue. A lot of folks will buy them, put them in their home, hang them according to manufacturer's instructions, and then never read the instructions on how to use them.
They try to squeeze it and nothing will happen.
Exactly. Do you pull the pin, squeeze
Yeah.
the handle, and then they don't realize that you don't squirt it at the smoke and the flames. You squirt it at where the flames are coming from, whether it's a pan or a couch or something. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. If you don't know how to use the extinguisher, you may make matters worse, or you may be wasting valuable escape time. So when in doubt, get outside and wait for the fire department to show up. In a office or something where there are fire extinguishers readily available, most companies will provide some sort of training, whether it's in the form of a video or whether they actually go out in the parking lot and practice with extinguishers that are about ready to be retired. They'll use them up. But in the home, that's not often the case. It's usually, oh, I got one as a gift, or it was a raffle prize at a giveaway. I'll hang it on the wall and I'll be safe. But then they never follow up on how to use it.
How long do they last if you are just let it sit there?
It depends on the unit itself. The smaller, inexpensive ones that you purchase for the home may last 5 or 10 years. I'm sure there's something in the instructions that'll say. The more industrial size ones can last as long as they're tested and pressure tested on an annual basis by a contractor. They can last for years, as long as they're being tested and maintained.
Since we mentioned smoke detectors, we'll include in that if you wanted to touch on CO2 detectors too, because people have those in the house too.
It's carbon monoxide.
Right.
Carbon dioxide
Okay.
is the stuff in your soda.
Right, okay. The one you drink, one you
Exactly.
breathe.
Carbon monoxide, again, you mentioned fire season. We mentioned heating and closing up our homes. For months now, our homes have been open, doors and windows, and just enjoying the fresh air. When it gets cold, we close everything up. If we have an appliance, whether it's a wood stove, a fireplace, a furnace, a gas appliance of some kind that's not working or not vented properly, the carbon monoxide builds up in the home. And you don't smell it, you don't taste it, you don't see it. The first indication that there's a problem is when someone starts to get sick. And in some cases, you may not even feel that because you may be going to bed and say, oh, I feel terrible, I'm going to go lay down. And you might not wake up. So it's recommended that you have carbon monoxide detection on every level in the home. And not just near where the appliance is, especially near the bedrooms, on the main living area if you have a 2-floor home, down in the basement. And check them, just like you do a smoke alarm. Push the test button, check them to make sure that they're working.
Check those, swap out those batteries just as often as the
Yep.
smoke detectors.
It's a similar device, it just does a different sensor. It's the carbon monoxide sensor versus the smoke sensor.
And homes that have the garage built into the house, they're obviously more at risk because if there is any carbon monoxide that's going to creep up, it's obviously easier in that sense.
It is, and again, going to the cold weather, no one likes to get into a cold car in the morning. You got a remote starter, or you sneak out to the cold garage, you start the car, and you run back in for that one last cup of coffee or to get your stuff together before work. Open the garage door. Because if you close the garage door, all that carbon monoxide in the exhaust from the vehicle will find its way into the home. I've gone to incidents with my fire department where that was the case. The alarm goes off, we show up, and the car is still running in the garage when we pull up, and we're saying, okay, this is going to be pretty straightforward here. Let's open the door, let it vent, and we'll see what takes place. But it can come from any one of a number of things. If the vent is not properly maintained with a lot of snow, you may have the vent get some snow drift blocked against it, and if the appliance isn't working properly, or if you just overload the appliance where it's trying harder to work, it might not vent properly. Carbon monoxide backs into the house and it's going to make people ill, and unfortunately in many cases it kills them.
Let's move out of the garage and come back into the house, because you mentioned chimneys, wood stoves, things that get used obviously in the winter, and preventative stuff and just stuff to keep an eye on.
Well, with the chimney itself, whether it's for a fireplace, a wood stove, or anything where you're burning solid fuel, it's a good idea to have it checked. And a chimney sweep or someone that is certified to examine that, do a visual inspection. Look to make sure it's not blocked or potentially blocked where it was only going to take one more, week of burning wet, unseasoned wood to close up that, and then the smoke will back up, then the carbon monoxide will back up. have a mason, if you have any question about the stability of the chimney and whether the flue is intact, have a mason take a look at it. Because through cracks in the flue, the carbon monoxide can seep into the home. So you're looking for obstructions in the flue itself and to make sure that the flue is structurally sound as well. If you have a metal stovepipe coming out of your wood stove, it's as simple as kind of tapping on it. Does it sound like it's hollow, or does it sound like you're hitting a wall and it's solid inside? You could often find a blockage within the wood stove vent itself by just tapping on it. You can take a pencil or a nail or something, just go up along, and you'll hear it. When it gets solid and it's a dull thud, there might be a blockage there. You know, disassemble it, have it cleaned. And that's the best preventative maintenance right there. The second one would be to burn some seasoned wood. Don't burn stuff that was cut down 2 weeks ago and left out in the rain, because that burns. It doesn't burn as efficiently as dry seasoned wood. So if you're getting wood from someone, ask and say, how long has the wood been down, and when did you cut the tree down? When has this stuff been brought in? If they say, well, we cut it last year, it's been sitting out under a tarp, you're going to be pretty well. If they say, well, we cut it down last week across the street and we dragged it over here, that may or may not be ready to burn. You may want to let that sit for a while. Maybe good for the fire pit out back, but it's not going to work very well in your wood stove. It's going to create a lot of creosote in the chimney.
Tell me how it was for you and firefighters in general this past winter, because it was brutal, snow-wise, cold-wise, almost like an ice age. What were some things you had to deal with?
Well, the volume of calls was up naturally. People were in distress, whether it was medical calls that we were running or just fire calls. Fires themselves were up. And then navigating to the fires was very, very difficult. Shoveling hydrants on a regular basis.
That doesn't get mentioned enough, does it?
No.
I think so. If it's near your property, shovel it, and the walk too, by the way, which you should do anyway. But the hydrant, shovel that out, dig it out.
A lot of cities and areas have programs called Adopt a Hydrant. And the one closest to your home, it takes 5 minutes. Go outside, shovel around it, nice clear open space around it. The fire department will love you for it. And in the cases where you have hundreds and hundreds of hydrants, like in some of the bigger cities, it often takes the fire department alone weeks to shovel out the hydrants. And in between, while they're doing that, they're running calls. They're going to fires. They're going to medical
So
problems.
resources are being taken away to get the shovels.
Exactly. So, the winter is especially difficult in public safety, whether it's police, fire, or ambulance, because the travel conditions are a lot worse. Just getting from point A to point B, or getting into some of these buildings with snowbanks that are 6 feet high and icy walks and things like that you mentioned, it is taxing on the public safety folks.
Another thing that's getting popular now is in these rough winters, or really anytime power goes out, people are big into getting the generators now. And probably one of the big misuses of it, I guess, is keeping it inside, maybe inside the garage. Talk about generators.
Yeah, well, it goes back to carbon monoxide as the main hazard. If you have a portable generator, one that's on wheels that you can use for the camper, or you can use, in your home, and it's not a permanently mounted generator, yes, put it away from the building. Make sure the exhaust is going away from the building so there's no carbon monoxide being drawn back in. And make sure you're using it within its rating. When you purchase it at the store, find out what the rating is. And if you're going to bring it home and plug your refrigerator, your furnace, your well pump, the TV, the computer and everything else into it, make sure that it's rated for that much of a load. If it's not, you may have to run the refrigerator for an hour, then run your well for an hour, then run your furnace. You can't do it all at once. So make sure you're sizing the generator for what you want it to do. You may have to do without lights in certain parts of the home, or you may have to do without the refrigerator on every level, or cycle it through. And then just be careful. It's an electrical appliance. Just be careful and follow the manufacturer's instructions when you're installing it, when you're using it, and by all means, please put it away from the building, exhausting away from the building.
All right, let's take one more break and come right back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay right there. So that is our show for today, our yearly long fire prevention show as we come into winter. Anything else you want to make sure that people know? Maybe some misconceptions about what people are doing fire safety-wise?
Well, again, you can't stress enough that people should know how fast fire can spread. Have a healthy respect for it. It's one thing to see it in a fireplace or on a candle, on a table, but if there is a fire in your home, drop everything and get out as fast as you can, because it's going to grow faster than you can run, and that's pretty much the message.
The website, what are there tips and lots of good stuff on the website?
Yes, we have different tabs on there, and there's fire prevention and information is downloadable, free information for different grade levels in schools. Teachers can print out these things and use them as handouts. Girl Scout, Boy Scout leaders can use them as topics for discussion, and a lot of good handout materials just around the house or around the office as well.
So what's the website one more time?
It's www.nfpa.org.
Robert Duvall, New England Regional Director, Senior Fire Investigator. As always, pleasure having you on the show
Thank
today.
you very much. Appreciate it.
You can see this show and many others on our YouTube sites. Until next time, I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Take care.